So I'm joined today by Robert Ward, who is our new church planting partner in South Boston. Robert and your wife Sigourney. Robert has three kids: Quentin, age 12, Sarah Joy, 9, and then Isaac, who was just born in February, fresh 6 weeks
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
Robert, when we first met, we met through Pillar Atlanta area,
Yeah.
and like the Pillar Atlanta area meetings, and you were on staff down at Cross Point in Columbus. What was your role there, and how long were you there?
Yeah. My role at Crosspoint was pretty varied. I was on staff there actually for 14 years. And so in that time, it really evolved. I stepped into that role shortly after I graduated college. And so I was on staff really as just an administrative assistant, pastoral assistant, kind of just doing whatever I needed doing. But over time, it took on some different responsibilities in the church. I became a pastor and not just an assistant. And so I started to like lead Bible studies for men and women. I started to oversee like our small groups as well, especially as our membership process, and not just welcoming people into the church and bringing them through the steps to join the church and be meaningful members within the church, but also following up with them as they moved on. You know, Columbus is really close to Fort Benning, and so we would have a lot of military families come through. And with that rate of turnover, it was really kind of like a part-time job in and of itself to just follow up with them and make sure that they were connecting with like-minded
Sure.
churches and places that the Lord took them through the army. So, yeah, I was preaching pretty regularly, 4 or 5 times a year, overseeing different aspects of church life at various points: children's ministry, college ministry, Sunday school. I mean, just you name it. It
Yeah.
was kind of all over the place, which I really have a lot of appreciation for now that I find myself in the
Yeah.
role of having to be kind of a jack of all trades as like the primary pastor.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Doing all kinds of things like you do when you're on staff at a church for 14 years.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Never a dull moment.
And I should have mentioned you're actually a UGA grad, right around
That's
not
right.
not too far from us at Antioch, and then you got a master's from RTS.
I did, yeah. So in my time on staff at
Is that right?
Crosspoint, yeah, I also went through a Master of Arts in Biblical Studies from RTS up there in Marietta, and it was great. I managed to like cram a 3-year degree into about like 7 years, but I'm really thankful for the freedom to be able to do that and travel back and forth
That's
from.
my way of doing school.
That's it. So yeah, man, it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
So how does a Georgia boy go from Columbus to Boston?
Yeah. I mean, mostly flying. We did drive to. I'm just kidding. So a few years ago, I mean, I was on staff at Crosspoint, and through a mutual friend of mine and the pastor here in Boston, I got connected with Jonathan Mosley, that pastor, and he was in the process of really getting ready to set out with this new church being planted in the neighborhood of Mission Hill here in Boston, Mass. Jonathan's from Columbus too, by the way. I didn't know him when he was in Columbus. He also graduated from the University of Georgia. We were there roughly the same time. I didn't know him there, but through this mutual friend of ours, we got connected years later. And he happened to be visiting Columbus, visiting family and doing some support raising. And this friend said, "Hey, I think you guys would actually hit it off, and maybe Crosspoint should consider supporting Jonathan and his church, Kings Hill Church." And so I met with him, and man, we really did, hit it off. I mean, it was very clear like this was a like-minded brother and one who was really taking steps of, I would say, like bold faith to see this church started in a city as difficult and really like post over Christianity in so many ways as Boston is. And so we quickly jumped in to support the church, primarily financially, though we did shortly after partnering with them send a team of students to visit and help out. I myself got to visit, really just more of a scouting kind of a trip, but that was the second time that I had been to Boston. Once I had gone up when I was a freshman in college and really loved the city, but this was a different perspective, thinking about it from the angle of church planting and really the lack of churches, evangelical gospel preaching churches that there is up in Boston. And so, man, it was It was really encouraging. It was exciting to see the work the Lord would be doing through Kings Hill and the prospects of that. And say that again.
How long ago was that they planted?
That was 2018. So
Okay.
I think it was that maybe that spring, summer, somewhere in there. And yeah, I mean they really went through a bit of a gauntlet those first few years. Boston's a challenging place to plant a church in general because a lot of the spaces that you would be looking for a church to meet in, they're not really available for those churches to use. Like whether it's public schools, you kind of gotta know the right people to get a foothold there, or public meeting spaces oftentimes are kind of off the beaten path. Real estate is really expensive, renting spaces here is really expensive, and so for a time there Kings Hill was meeting in a elementary school kind of off the road. I mean, it was back behind a few buildings. They would put out signs on the sidewalk to direct people to come to worship. Of course, they were having to meet at like 5 o'clock on Sunday nights. The Patriots, therefore, have a good deal to say about whether or not people are going to be meeting for church at that time. I mean, there's just so many factors. The sun is setting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, good grief, who's stumbling into a church in that setting? So there are other
Yeah.
little stories that Jonathan, I'm sure, would share with you about, especially their neighbors, and frankly, I mean, how absolutely oppressive and like the amount of persecution that they experienced, even from the people who lived in their own building, was
Sure.
really, really
Sure.
something. But man, like all of that really endeared me to the work that was going on in this church. And so man, I that just kind of lingered in my mind, even as I'm going about work in Columbus and the various aspects of ministry there. And so as the years went by, we continued to stay in touch, Jonathan and I. And gosh, it was probably the fall of 2023, so 5 years in, that I reached out to Jonathan and said, "Hey, man, we'd love to come visit Boston as a family. Like, I wanted to come back up. Sigourney and Quentin and Sarah Joy, they'd never been really north of Virginia. And so we thought it'd be fun to go to New England, enjoy some autumn foliage and all that stuff, some actual cool weather." And so yeah, we
Yeah.
came up. Jonathan let me preach for him that Sunday, give him a break, and man, I just found it really invigorating and encouraging, exciting, to be preaching in that setting where on a given Sunday morning, you're going to have, yes, a number of people who believe the gospel, but also you're very likely to have people who are there because they are seriously considering the claims of Christianity and the claims of Scripture, and they want to learn more. Maybe they were invited by a friend. Maybe they got an invitation card through a free granola bar that they were handed at a red line or bus stop, something like that. But here they are, and I just found that really exciting. And especially when you consider the significance culturally that a place like Boston has. I mean, the number of Supreme Court justices who go through Boston, just as one example, you recognize there's a real strategic element to church planting there that I think is kind of unique and was really, really excited
Sure.
about. And so we went really as a family thinking of just going on some sort of a pseudo vacation. But when we came back from that trip, Sigourney and I were both struck by the really what I think the Lord was laying on our hearts, which was, man, is there actually an opportunity for us to do something like this, or maybe even join in on this specific work that's going on? We talked about it over dinner a few weeks after we got back. Sigourney and I were sitting down, and I just floated the idea, what if the Lord's calling us to do something like that, or maybe even to partner more directly with Kings Hill in Boston? And her initial response, and this is how I knew the Lord was at work, was, it snows, it is cold, we'd be far from family. Our daughter, she has special needs that are pretty significant. And so we had a whole network of doctors and therapists, and not to mention just family and friends who know her rhythms and know how to care for her and watch over her. And leaving all of that behind to do something in Boston where, man, there's other people doing the work. Why do we need to join in on that? It was a serious questions there. And so we tabled the discussion for a little while, but the truth is the Lord kept drawing our attention back to this idea. I was really in some ways starting to just sense a sort of restlessness in me, not discontentment. I love Crosspoint, and Crosspoint
Sure.
still, I think, loves us. They're our biggest supporter in this work. But I was wondering if maybe the Lord was leading us to whatever is next, not knowing exactly what that would look like. Here, church planting, northern cities, specifically Boston, just kept coming across my screen. I mean, it was just there. And
Yeah.
so we began to really talk and consider it. In the midst of this, I'm thinking out loud with my good friend Jonathan Mosley, pastor in Boston, about what it is maybe the Lord's up to in my heart. And Jonathan, I think he recognized an
Jonathan's like,
opportunity.
he's like, I know the Lord's will for you.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, he's like, "Hey, man, have I got good news for you? You know, I know a city where we could use more church
Yeah.
planters, and I know a church that would be happy, in fact, to bring a guy on, maybe in some sort of pseudo staff resident kind of role." In all seriousness, Kings Hill had really grown at such a rate and seemed to continue on that trajectory that it seemed like, hey, we probably will not have much of a choice but to plant a church here in the coming years. And man, we're going to need somebody who's
Yeah.
got pastoral experience, not just fresh out of seminary, just kind of learning how to be a pastor while also learning how to plant a church. It'd be good to have somebody with the amount
Yeah.
of experience that I had, as well as the heart, for the city and dynamics of an already growing family to step in there. And so Jonathan and the other elder of Kings Hill, Kevin, they both began to really pray and talk, unbeknownst to me. And then they reached out one day and just said, "Hey, we think the Lord's actually drawing your heart to really consider Boston, and we want to put this really on the table. We want to see churches planted in the city. That's been our mission from the get-go. But now we think we may not really have a choice, but to really set into that soon. And we think you might be a good fit for this. Your preaching landed well here, your personality, etc. We think you'd be a good fit. Consider it, pray about it." And so, man, with that concrete opportunity on the table, Sigourney and I began to really pray and talk to friends and family and especially our church family, the elders of Crosspoint,
Yeah.
our friends in our small group, the people that knew us best and had really sat under my ministry for several years in various capacities, right? Families and senior adults and kids. I mean, just weighing in on all of this. And we found overwhelming affirmation and support from, I mean, virtually everybody that we spoke to. We rolled it out to the church that summer in 2024, really late that summer 2024, that we were going to take the next steps, really just seeking the Lord's will, being open to whatever He might do. But hey, you know what? Like what do we do now? We wanted to be assessed by the North American Mission Board, by the SEND Network, the church planting arm of NAM. We were going to be assessed that I think it was that November, which was cutting it kind of close since we were actually at this point talking about moving to Boston in January. But yeah, I mean, we went through that assessment. The church at large just overwhelmingly said, "Yeah, we're behind this. We want to support you." I remember a member of the church that we had known for years. I mean, from the beginning of my time there, of our time there, when he heard the news, I mean, he reached out to me immediately, sending me a link to pick out a color of wool coat that I would want, that he wanted to buy for me. Or I mean, just a really nice and thoughtful and very critically necessary gift. But it was just like, man, it was stuff like that where you could see, okay, yeah, I mean, I think as scary as this is and as unknown as this
Hmm.
is, I mean, all those questions still lingered. We
Sure.
realized, man, I think the Lord is certainly going before us here, and for all the things that we might be losing, and there are certainly a lot of things that we needed to count the cost on. We recognize that the Lord could just as easily provide in
Yeah.
abundance what we were missing. Maybe not the exact same, but maybe actually, in
Sure.
fact, in a way that we didn't quite recognize we needed. And so, man, we began to
Yeah.
see little glimpses of that in our visits to check out the city, to look for where we might live, things like that. We began to see ways in which the Lord was already reassuring us and beginning to answer some of the prayers that we had about how our family would adjust, how we would adjust, Sigourney and I, what the ministry would look like, and the challenges and joys and learning curve, all of it. By
Yeah.
God's grace, we ended up being able to move to Boston after being given a green light by NAM. We moved up in January of 2025, and we've been here ever since. So that's in a nutshell, I
Yeah.
suppose, how you end up getting from Columbus to Boston.
Well, I do appreciate that while you left Georgia, you're still, I think you're still rocking like you got the Boston, but it's the Boston Braves shirt that you're wearing right now, right?
That's right.
So
Go
you have
go
not
Braves.
turned on, you have not turned on the Braves like other people that may have gone from Georgia to Boston did. So,
I mean, I've
the
been
on
told
the
that basically if you pretend, people can sniff that out. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to pretend. But honestly, truthfully, I'm just being uber contextual because the Braves are the original Boston
There you
Major
go.
League Baseball team.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to reach that 80, 90-year-old crowd.
There you go. That's the demographic, target demographic. Nam would be
That's it. You
proud.
can see
Hey,
where I
you
fit in.
said now you mentioned Nam, and we're this. That's a good segue. We're like about to be kicking off we're our Annie Armstrong for the month, and so we're Sin Network Church, and you are Sin Network, and so now we're being good Sin Network planters by plugging the fact that when you give to Annie Armstrong, you give to
Yeah.
guys like
Come on
us
now.
and guys like you.
Yeah.
So that's just my little commercial for our folks.
I didn't really have a
When
lot of
so now
experience
you since
in network before this, and I've been really encouraged in so many ways by the way that they've equipped me, but also I think maybe even more importantly, the way they've connected me with other brothers in the city and in the region. Not that we like agree philosophically on every single detail of how to go about pastoring or planting, but man, I found in each of them habits and ways of relating to the Lord and encouraging others to do the same that have really like sharpened me. And I've just found genuine brotherhood. I've got Jonathan, I've got Kevin at Kings Hill. That's been awesome. But I've also been doing a residency with the Send Network. And so both of those things in tandem have given me just so many guys that I can go to and bounce ideas off of and seek prayer from and all of it. So
yeah, Sin Network's been great as well down here in our experience with planting. So since landing there in January of 2025, you've been working with Kings Hill and sort of gearing up, ramping up towards planting. Where's your current timeline at? I know that sometimes these are held loosely, but what's your current timeline on actually planting?
well, and I should probably mention, we didn't just move to Boston. We moved to South Boston actually here in the last few months, and that's a particular
Yeah,
wrinkle
let's
on
talk
this
about that first.
probably
Yeah.
worth talking about within the context of the timeline. So, Boston, it's a big city, but it is actually a small big city. Like when you compare it to New York or Chicago or somewhere, Boston's pretty small, about 600,000 citizens of Boston proper. And of course that doesn't include people who live in Cambridge or Somerville, which are nearby cities that are distinct from Boston. But at any rate, yeah, when we moved up, we were aware of all these different neighborhoods, but one in particular had our attention before we even moved, and that was South Boston. Now, that sounds like a neighborhood south of the city or a separate sort of thing. It is a neighborhood within Boston, and no, it is not south on the south side. It's really on the east side, but we already have an East Boston, so this gets to be called South Boston. The geography of Boston, Massachusetts is a fascinating story to watch unfold through maps. Southie or South Boston is really one of the few spots of the city, though, that more or less has been here since the beginning. Much of Boston is really backfilled land. It's just sand and dirt dumped into the harbor from decades and really a couple centuries now, I guess, of work to build out the city. But Southie, as it's known, has a really long standing heritage in the city. In particular, it at various times has been a hub for various immigrant communities, including Irish Catholic, Polish, Italian, Sicilian, a lot of them obviously then bringing a very strong Catholic heritage, but also a very blue collar, kind of salt of the earth sort of heritage to them as well. And so we have really, our sights have been set on this neighborhood largely because within the 23 neighborhoods that make up Boston, Southie stands alone as one of maybe two or three that do not have an evangelical church present in the neighborhood, which is really saying
Yeah, I
something. I
always
mean,
like to I always
yeah,
like to highlight that and like to put a just exclamation point on that for folks because I don't think that always computes for folks from here. When
yeah.
you're
I mean,
saying they don't have an evangelical church, what you mean is let's be as charitable as possible with all of the theological points and whatever. Is there a church that just preaches that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and that you can be saved by believing in him? That's what you mean by evangelical church, like a really
That's
low
all I
bar,
mean. Yeah,
and you're saying
I'm
there's
not talking
that's
about
all you mean.
anything beyond that. I'm saying there is not a church in South Boston where you can go or send somebody where you would expect them to hear the gospel articulated in a clear and compelling way any given Sunday.
Yeah.
And then another layer of that is there's likewise no church in South Boston where you could even really expect to send somebody where they're going to see the Bible held in front of God's people as the final authority for faith and practice for believers. I have to make that distinction because there are two Catholic churches here, like two Roman Catholic parishes. And I think sometimes people go, well, they hold the Bible up as God's word. They point people to Jesus. We can talk about the nature of the gospel that they proclaim that I would say we very strongly disagree with. But at the same time, even their understanding of scripture is very much subordinated to the traditions and history of the church. And so, even that, you can't say they promote the Bible as the final authoritative word of God because it's really not final or authoritative in either one of those senses. So, South Boston, I think, stands unique in that way, in large part because it's kind of on an island of its own. Southie is surrounded by water on three sides. The only way you're getting into South Boston, at least if you're taking transit or the T, is you're getting right to the western edge of the neighborhood on the Red Line train. And then the rest of it is either on foot or you're taking a bus. If you're driving, it's a really hard place to find a parking spot, as I can attest. I mean, like there's so many reasons that make South Boston not a destination. It is a place where people live. It's a place where they wake up, maybe go further into town for work during the day, let's say, or they work in the neighborhood. But then at the end of the day, they come back and they lay their heads in South Boston. But it's not like a place that people are passing through, which means too, I think
Yeah.
that it's kind of an unattractive place to see a church planted in the city, where there are other maybe more seemingly strategic places to put a church, where you're going to reach a wider swath of the whole city. You know, people coming from all corners of Boston. Kings Hill, the church that we're a part of, is a lot like that, right? It draws people from all over the place. And there's value in that being a city church. But when it comes to Southie, it's still going to be a 30-minute adventure to get to Kings Hill. And that's one of the closest churches to South Boston. I had a
Wow.
friend come visit the other day. We got lunch at the Boston Common, which is right there in the middle of the city. There are a few evangelical churches close by. And I pointed that out to him as we then made the journey to South Boston afterwards to go walk around. And I mean, by the time we got to Southie, I just pointed it out to him and said, hey, you realize how long it took us to get here by transit, which is probably the most efficient way to do it, where you don't have to park at the end of your trip, right? And he was like, yeah, that took a long time. I said, yeah, imagine you're not even looking for a church. And this is the journey you got to make to find one, right? That's assuming you want to find one. But if you're not, gosh, you're not going to find it walking the streets of South Boston. There is one lone Baptist church in Southie. It's a couple blocks north of where we live. I visited there a few weeks ago after our baby was born. I took the opportunity to go visit this church just to say hey and introduce myself. I mean, there were about 6 people there total, and that church has been there for generations. And likely
Hmm.
it is able to stay around because of money that it has put in a bank account or inherited from previous members who maybe have left their estates to the church. And so that's the state of things in South Boston. And so yeah,
Sure.
it's a difficult place to see churches planted there, or rather there haven't been many successful stories of that through the years, and I mean years. And for a neighborhood of 35,000 people, we just find that really unacceptable. Want to be a part of seeing that
Sure.
change.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now you just started, I think, correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline. You just started, was it this year? You started having core group gatherings
Yeah.
in January, maybe?
Yeah, so Kings Hill has been just really supportive of seeing this church planted. And so we have a number of members of Kings Hill who will be coming with us to plant this church, Lord willing, this fall. So maybe September 2026. We began meeting as a core team here in January. We're meeting roughly once a month just to kind of talk shop, think things through about maybe some strategy for how we can reach the neighbor and build relationships with people so that when we do officially start meeting publicly regularly Sunday mornings for worship, it's not just the 10 of us, but maybe a few more people
Yeah.
who at least are familiar with us and interested in what we've got going on. And so, yeah, we've begun meeting. We've begun a small group that meets in our home Monday nights, really open to anybody, believers or not, as well as some Bible studies that we're doing. I've got a men's group that meets Friday mornings at a nearby coffee shop, and then we've got a women's group in the works here soon too. But with the weather clearing up and people being much more likely to be out and about and at least sitting on their stoops, talking to folks, walking up and down the sidewalk, we think there's going to be a lot of opportunities actually here in March and especially into April, May, June, July, where we can do more publicly of accessible events or various things in the neighborhood that will maybe draw people out and allow us a chance to introduce ourselves. So
Yeah.
we'll see what the Lord does with that.
Yeah, so what are those kind of things like, what does it look like between now and the target date of September? What does church planting look like in, a tough neighborhood like South Boston?
Yeah, yeah. So with these various studies we've got going on, I think that's one way in which we want to certainly reach out to people who are already believers in the neighborhood. There are certainly people here who are members of other churches in the city, like-minded churches that we would say, hey, you should consider if you're planning on being in South Boston long term, you should consider maybe joining in with the work that we're doing here. And I've talked with a number of their pastors about this very thing and finding a lot of support in that, which has been really encouraging. But we recognize not everybody in the neighborhood is going to feel comfortable just walking into a stranger's home for Bible study. There's got to be other ways for us to build some rapport with people in the neighborhood. And so to that end, we've got some different events that I think are on the horizon here for us that we'll try to heavily promote within the neighborhood among young professionals, among families, as well as people who are born and raised right here in South Boston as a way of showing that we don't bite necessarily and that we want to be here for the good of the neighborhood and that we want this church to reflect the best of South Boston with an eye for the kingdom of heaven, which ultimately is what South Boston and every neighborhood in the world is really longing to be, whether they recognize it or not. And so to that end, I think here in April, we're going to participate in a Love Your Block kind of cleanup. We're going to actually host it here in the neighborhood and be able to really promote it in partnership with the city, but allowing people to then come and with our leadership and guidance, help clean up some key areas of South Boston. One conversation I've been having lately is with a local bowling alley. I don't know if you're familiar with candlepin bowling. It's a very New England
I
thing, I've come to find out. But the bowling pins are not curved pins. They have no contour to them. They're just straight up and down like sticks. And so it makes it kind of an interesting like variation of bowling. The bowling balls are a lot smaller too, but it's a very regional thing. And Southie has its own candlepin bowling lane that I think we're going to try to buy out one Sunday afternoon here in May and encourage local families to come visit. Hey, it's on us. Come bowl. Let us meet you. Come meet us. We'll hang out, see where that goes, what conversations that
that's
leads to. But we also want to equip the members of our core team and other believers in the neighborhood who are thinking about that to be ready and eager to leverage and steward the friendships and relationships that the Lord's already given them. You know,
yes.
one aspect of life in the city that the members of Antioch might not be thinking about, that it took me a while to actually get used to, is that life here, especially in South Boston, is highly communal. You rarely will find a single family residence. And so while there's not massive apartment buildings anywhere around us other than the subsidized housing developments nearby, everyone lives more or less in one of these three-decker homes that are pretty standard issue for Boston anyway. We ourselves are living in the first floor unit with a living space in the basement. that we call our own, but we've got two neighbors who live right here in the building with us. And so you're kind of in a situation where you're always around other people,
Mhm.
believers, but also unbelievers, people who are maybe interested or curious about Christianity, curious about the gospel. Maybe they have no interest whatsoever, but you get the opportunity to pique their interest with the way that you live, the things that you talk about, the things that you value, how you serve the people around you, maybe even those very same neighbors. And so we want to equip the members of our core
Yeah.
team and members of our church ultimately to be on mission in the neighborhood, to be looking for ways to
Yeah.
truly, meaningfully form friendships with the people around them, the people they live around, the people they work with, so that they can also point them ultimately to the one thing that matters most, which is the gospel, which is Christ. Who is he? What has he done? How does he actually make us right with God? You may not even realize you need to be made right with God. Let me walk you through that. That's our
Yeah.
aim, and of course that's a slow burn. That's a long game that we're playing, but we think that ultimately preaching the gospel, pointing people to the Word on Sunday mornings, yes, but also throughout the week in official ways and unofficial ways. That's going to be the way that the Lord uses us to build His church.
Amen. Yeah, we talked to when we were going through the process of deciding to support you. We talked a lot about like that vision for equipping people to live on mission where God has placed them, and we're really working through that here now. But just encouraging to see that it's not all about the next big outreach event. There's a place for that, but it is about like how do we equip our folks to go with the gospel.
I mean, that's
Um,
the thing. Like nobody's just gonna take an invitation to church and jump all in. I've invited people to these Bible studies. I've invited people to Kings Hill because our church is going to be very much reminiscent of Kings Hill. And I've said, "Hey, look, come worship with us on a Sunday morning." I mean, I'm even talking about people who are at least are open to calling themselves believers, without it, well, with very few exceptions. Most of them just go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, just let me know when the church is planted and then I'll swing by," you know? And there's a real hesitation, I think, among people to just kind of jump into something that's unfamiliar, maybe scary in that way. And I think for a lot of people, they're kind of hesitant, a little timid. Some reason because of the experience they may have already had with other kind of organized Christian groups, whether it's the Roman Catholic Church or other Protestant churches that maybe they were a part of from other parts of the country that they moved here from. By and large, I think the way the gospel is going to spread in this neighborhood is because of individuals and families and households that go forward with the gospel and bring people into their lives.
yes. Yeah, and that's actually yeah, and that's actually even for we would have more people here, you know this, that would probably accept an invitation to church. But that's really even the case here, that the
Yeah.
way that the gospel is going to go forward is by those same kinds of things, building a relationship and bringing people into your life. And that the foyer of our church, it might be somebody else's like living room, dinner table or something like that. Um, that's really just the case for what it means to follow Jesus is to pursue others with the opportunity or seeking the opportunity to share the gospel. Yeah,
One
man,
of the
love that.
pastors in the Send Network up here, he has given me this analogy that I think is really helpful. He says, might really, really enjoy sushi and think it's fantastic. I'm not opposed to sushi, by the way. I don't really have an opinion, but for the sake of the illustration, you might really love it, and think, oh, this is fantastic. And you want others to enjoy that too. But if you're just inviting people over to your home to eat sushi with you, they're probably not going to take you up on that because it's maybe a bit more of an acquired taste than you realize. And so you're better off maybe at first giving them, I don't know, like just some grilled fish of some sort or whatever other options you can if you want to bring them in and maybe then slowly you can work towards that. Just because you like sushi doesn't mean that other people do. And if you treat it like it's just
Yeah,
any other thing, that sometimes does not come off well. It feels like a bait and switch. So yeah, that's
sure.
yeah. Today actually, just to give you another example here, Sigourney, she's part of a local neighborhood moms group that it encompasses all of South Boston. If you're a mom, join in, pay your dues. We'll do different events and stuff together, go hang out, find friends, because a lot of people, they might not admit it, but the truth is they're very lonely. They're looking for people to be around and share
Mhm.
ideas with and commiserate about being a mom with or whatever. And so anyway, Sigourney was in touch with one of these moms and reached out and said, "Hey, would you like to go? Would you like to just kind of get out, go for a walk? The weather's kind of clearing up. It's not totally freezing outside. Maybe we can go and enjoy that." And this mom has also welcomed a baby into her home in the last 6 weeks, and so they went and went for a walk, and just a natural part of conversation. What brought you to Boston? What do you do? What does your husband do? And so Sigourney got to share a little bit with her. Oh yeah, well, my husband's a pastor, and we're here to see a church formed, a congregation settled into this neighborhood, and that looks like this neighborhood, and this woman, I mean, this was fascinating to her, but it opened the door because now she and Sigourney are talking about, man, I kind of want to be thinking about some of these sorts of things with our baby. But what's be
Mhm.
is kind of like, here's an opportunity. I'm not going to see them at Bible study anytime soon, but
Sure.
I'm working toward at least seeing them at our kitchen table where we can and maybe share a meal,
Absolutely.
be friends, and slowly work towards, yeah, like let's talk about things that are actually really really important, and what it would look like, yeah, for your family to be oriented around something beyond just itself. Let's talk about the gospel.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. You have a event coming up that's originally Kings Hill, the big move, but then you're going to be using it to help come alongside what you're doing in South Boston. Can you talk to us just a little bit about what that looks like? Where some of us are coming, whether it's me and my son or whether other folks jump in. Can you talk a
Right.
little bit about how you're planning to use that, or what that is and how you're planning to use that?
Yeah, yeah. So, an interesting fact about Boston is that every year, without exception, on September 1st, no change ups, 75% roughly of leases in this city turn over, which means every year, without exception, rain, sleet, or snow, on September 1st, people are moving. They're moving into the city, they're moving out of the city, they're moving across town. What that means is the city of Boston becomes a hub of U-Hauls and trucks and people desperate for help with their move that they maybe could have planned out a little bit better, but now here they are, and I just need some help. Like I mentioned, a lot of these houses, they're three-decker homes. They don't have elevators, they don't have service elevators at all. And moving that couch up three flights of stairs or down three flights of stairs, people find themselves in situations where they're eager to make friends and meet some new folks who are willing to help. And that's where Kings Hill has stepped in for the last really the last 6 or 7 years by doing this. What Kings Hill has done and what we will continue to do at Kings Hill South Boston is we bring in partners from churches all over the country that are supporting our work, and we say, hey, could you help us help these people move? We'll give you a t-shirt that makes you look official and that has our branding on it, so that's handy. We will feed you lunch, we'll give you ideas of places to stay, and we'll certainly show you around the city, and give you a sense of the work that we're up to. Can you just be present on September 1st and help us help these people move? You might think to yourself, well, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound particularly spiritual, or how effective, or how necessary is that really? I'll just tell you, last year we began to really focus on South Boston. Kings Hill largely focuses on the Mission Hill area, which has a lot of college students and young adults, but hadn't really done much in Southie until we moved up. And so here in Southie, this past September was really our first big foray into the neighborhood. And I got to tell you, the neighborhood was overrun with U-Hauls for 20 and 30 somethings moving into the city, maybe some of them moving to the city for the first time, and being able to walk up, maybe offer once or twice in a lot of cases to help. It paves a way. It gives a real inroad to really serving people and giving them an expectation of what the local church is, and how it exists, yes, to glorify God, but in a specific time and place, by serving the city, by being part of the city, by ministering to the people around that neighborhood, whether they're believers or not. It, in many cases, is a paradigm shift for people. It also
Yeah.
allows, as you might imagine, opportunity for spiritual conversation that does come up, or at least, if nothing else, opportunity to pray for people. Hey, you're just moving into this city, you're taking on a new
Hmm.
job. Can I pray for you? That sounds like a lot. We've got a church that is meeting here in South Boston. Actually, Lord willing, this very September. We're meeting this Sunday. If you have nothing else going on, I'd encourage you to come visit just to see. Maybe this will be a way for you to get to know other people in the neighborhood. If you're at all interested in hearing more about who Jesus is, about what he has done, about the truth of Scripture, you should come check it out. It just paves roads for people to be able to have conversations
Yeah.
just like that very quickly and easily. And it allows that neighborhood as well to know, man, there's a church here that is for this neighborhood, that's for this city, and that really does
Yeah.
genuinely care about people here.
Yeah, and those things can pay dividends down the road, right?
Yeah.
Like, you just I mean, they can pay dividends in people's lives just down the road.
Well, and like to give me an example of
That
that, I mean, this past year, we helped out on September 1st. We had, I don't remember how many people throughout the neighborhood. South Boston's kind of spread out relative to other neighborhoods. I want to say we probably had close to 150 people all over the neighborhood. So, helping people move, walking up and down the streets, or not just helping people move, but doing this work in front of other people who are watching. So, case in point, a few months had gone by, and a woman shows up at Kings Hill from South Boston, and so we asked, "Hey, how'd you find Kings Hill? What drew you to this church over all the other maybe churches in the city that you could have come to?" But her response was really interesting. She said, "Well, my husband and I, we were watching on moving day all these people in blue shirts walking up and down the street, helping people, helping some of our neighbors actually move in and out. And we thought that was just kind of like crazy." So some events that had transpired in her life led her to look for a church in the city, knowing there was really not one in the neighborhood that she felt like she would belong to. And so she Googled churches, Boston, and found Kings Hill Church's website, as well as other church websites. She pulls them up, she starts looking through them. And when she gets to the Kings Hill website, she sees one of the pictures on our front page of people in those same blue t shirts that she had seen walking up and down her street months before. And it triggered something in her where she said, "You know what? These people are serious about loving the Lord and serving the neighborhood. I want to give them a shot." And so she came and visited, and she and
yeah.
her husband, actually, who's more nominally Catholic, they've been coming to the church now off and on for months. In fact, they're part of, or she anyway, is part of our Monday night Bible study here in South Boston. And man,
Yeah.
that's possible because we had people come up from Georgia and Texas and wherever to help us help people move. And she wasn't even one of the people who was served directly, but she got to
Yeah.
witness the service of a church in this neighborhood, and it did something to change her mind and actually warm her heart to the prospects of being around this church.
Yeah, and so we have an opportunity to just display the gospel in that, and there's plenty of us. I mean, some I know folks that are like would be terrified about the actual gospel conversation, but
Sure.
there's plenty of us around that can declare the gospel and can speak it and whatever. But to just very simply, we have the opportunity to display the gospel, and when we work
Yeah.
as a team like this, then both of those things can get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. How can we be praying for you, your team, your core group? What can we be praying for?
Yeah, thanks for asking. September feels like a long ways off, and yet it feels like it is tomorrow in my mind. And so all the things that you want to have checked off before you start meeting as a church, those things increasingly get bigger and bigger in the forefront of my mind. Where are we going to meet? How are we going to
Mhm.
fund this whole thing? Who is actually going to be here? And it can't just be the people who are part of this core team now. we need people to actually be like present in the congregation, not just serving and off to the side. Like somebody needs to be in a
Yeah.
chair. Somebody's got to be sitting somewhere. All these things are running through my mind. I'd say the biggest thing you could be praying for right now is that the Lord would show us favor in finding a space to meet. South Boston's highly residential, which
Mm.
means there's not a lot of third spaces where a church group could conceivably meet. Now there's that church up the street from
Mm.
us that I'm still wanting to build some rapport with, that maybe, Lord willing, we can partner with in some ways to allow us to use that space on Sunday mornings even. But barring that, I think we're looking
Yeah.
at community centers or other kind of space that you could rent in the neighborhood in varying degrees. There's some hotels right outside of South Boston that might have like ballroom space that could function, but I think that wouldn't really be ideal, being just outside of Southie and therefore outside of walking distance for a lot of people. So pray for us. Pray for just favor. Maybe it's with this church down the road. Maybe it is with the community center also down the road. But whatever the case is, we do need a place for us to meet. You could pray as well
Yeah.
for connections with people outside of our core team. A number of members of our core team, all of them want to, and the expectation is that they will live in South Boston and move to South Boston here in the coming months. Nevertheless, not living in Southie does make it a little difficult to build relationships with people in Southie. And so I think that's an area that we are maybe a little bit behind in, is connecting with people in the neighborhood, inviting them to things, but also them being able to kind of bump shoulders with them, do life with them. So you can pray for more of those relationships and really for the Lord to open avenues for us to bring people into what we are already doing, as well as bringing the gospel to people in the neighborhood and in more organic ways.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things I always that I love about y'all's story, you were able to actually like put down roots in South Boston. Like you
Yeah.
were able to buy a condo or a house right there.
Yeah, we got
Um,
we got the
and that's
mortgage
so
to
having,
prove it.
known guy, yeah, but knowing other guys that have planted up there and been involved, like that's such a hurdle for so many people, like
Yeah.
such a hurdle for so many planters or pastors going into Boston, that I just love that y'all have been able to like really put down roots, because there's something about that tells the neighborhood like you plan to be there for a
Yeah.
while.
It
You're not just fly by night.
it's so nice to be able to say, "Hey, this is where I live. At the corner of L and 7th, you can find me." And it's not like it's gonna
Yes.
change on September 1st. And that will be
Yeah.
true for so many people around here. No, we're here. We've kinda planted
Yeah.
our flag. We've seen a lot of the benefit of that even already, where people feel like, "Hey, the Ward House is it's a haven and it's a hub." We can come
Good.
and escape, and we can also then be equipped and sent out. And
Good.
man, that's only possible because the Lord has provided a place for us to call our own, right?
Yeah.
There's no way in a million years we could be able to put something like this together on our own. The housing market here is kind of nuts, but the Lord has been faithful. The Lord has
Sure.
provided, and it's been cool to
Yeah.
see the divination.
Absolutely. It will be praying that he will provide for the meeting space for the church, and
That's the
praying for
thing,
the
I just find myself constantly in a position of dependence on the Lord, and I think that used to be really scary to me, and that's not to say that it's not at times scary now, but I just think, "Man, you know what? I didn't get here on my own strength, and I can point to a million ways how I know that is true, and so I'm just gonna lean on the Lord a little bit more here and see what and how he provides."
Absolutely. Yeah, church planting has a way of keeping you completely dependent on the Lord for sure.
Uh,
So,
it does do that.
man, we look forward to following the updates. We love getting in on sort of ground floor of work like this. We've got some other things going with some of our other mission partners to just
Awesome.
watch to see what the Lord does in the work of South Boston going forward. And so hope to bring, if nothing else, there's two of us coming
Hey,
to help
the
move.
more the
And I mean,
merrier.
you
Let me just say this. You may be thinking,
yeah.
I can't come because I'm not good at lugging couches up 3 flights of stairs. I have a doctor's note that says I shouldn't do that exact thing. Let me put you at ease. It's not all 3 flights of stairs. Sometimes it's just 1 flight, or maybe you just walk in off the street. There's that. Two, it's not always couches. Sometimes it's washing machines. Sometimes it's stools. It's bags of groceries, whatever. The third thing I'll mention is that you don't have to move anything at all. Maybe you are best suited to man or woman our water stations, which we'll have throughout the neighborhood. The number of
Yeah,
conversations people at our water stations had this past year was really encouraging. I have a number of phone numbers actually. In fact, a member of our small group is in our small group because of a woman she spoke to at a water station who came up here just
yeah.
to help with her church. I want to say she's in her mid 60s and did not feel like she wanted to help move furniture or all of that. She stood at the water station at the fire department, and I got a phone number because of that. And man, it's been a
That's,
blessing. Even kids, there's something disarming
yeah,
about kids that allows people to feel more comfortable saying yes to help. And
absolutely.
so I'd encourage the whole family to come. We'll find a way for everybody to get involved, no matter how much you
Well,
love
you've
or
seen
hate.
me. You've seen me. You know, I'm more like lift the washing machine up 3 flights of stairs kind of
Yeah, I
size.
know.
Like that's
I can
where
tell. I can
that's
tell.
where
You
I
don't even
am.
need a team. It's just you on your own.
So, do we get to final question about that? Do we get to go candlepin bowling if we come to the big move?
I think we should. In fact, that's actually a really good. That's a great idea. Actually, we should probably buy out the Candlepin Bowling Alley just for the big move too. I mean, that's no. I'm going to do that.
Listen,
We're going to do that.
I don't. I listen. I'm glad I could be of service here.
I'm right.
So I'm going to be googling what candlepin bowling is, but I think I need to do it. So
It's so fun. No, we should do it no matter what, even if it
uh,
is just me and you.
there we go. Well, we look forward to following the story and continuing to support and pray for you. And we really want this to be not just a relationship where we're sending a check, but where we're sending people and that you are genuinely encouraged in the tough work of church planting. Church planting's hard. Planting in Boston is hard. Planting in South Boston is just multiplying all of the hard there. And so we want to be an encouragement to that. So
No, and I'm just so
yeah.
thankful for you guys and the work that you're doing, but also, yeah, the support that you have given. I mean, just so quickly and helping us. It's been man, it's just so encouraging to have brothers and sisters, especially from our stomping grounds in Georgia, where man, like seeing the Lord provide again, but also through people
Yeah.
who, man, like we have a shared context and want to see the same things happen in South Boston. Man, that's really cool, and it's
Yeah.
humbling and it's
Yeah.
encouraging at the same time.
Amen.